Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today in this session about checklists for success, searching for your undergraduate options with our presenters, Jenika from Canada and Anna from Uruguay. We're going to start in 1 minute, so we are just going to wait for people to come into the session. Just a reminder, remember that the platform of the fair has a lot of features. We have a photo booth, so a photo booth. So in case you want to go there, take a picture and see other stuff, be our guest. So we also have a scavenger hunt that you can download at the EducationUSA booth or in the lobby to help you explore and discover new things at our fair. Please remember to put all your questions in the Q&A tab, and we will answer them towards the end or as they come up during the presentation. So with this, I guess we can start. We have a lot of people already. So please, Jenika and Anna, take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jorge. So once again, my name is Ana Sinicariello, and I am the EducationUSA advisor in Montevideo, Uruguay, and I'm joined with Jenika, and she is our advisor in Canada. We are so excited to be here with you today and talk about your checklist for success and searching for your undergraduate options, essentially finding your best fit as a student and finding which university will be right for you. Go ahead to the next slide. So a little bit of our agenda for today. We're talking about, like I said, what is the best fit university for you? So we'll talk about what institutions would be best, what academics, what region and setting, and also how finances can actually impact how to choose a university. Go ahead to the next slide. So first, we just want to do an open poll for everyone who's in the presentation right now. How many colleges and universities do you think that there are in the US? So you can share that with us in the chat or in the Q&A options. Take a guess. How many universities do you think that there are in the US? All right, so I see lots of answers coming in. Some say 3,000, some say 500. I see 10,000, over 400, 50,000, maybe 400, 259, very specific. Those are all really great guesses. Go ahead to the next slide. So there are actually approximately 4,700 accredited colleges and universities in the US, which depending on your home country, that could either be a lot or pretty comparable, but it is quite a lot to have to make a decision for what is the right fit for me. If I have 4,000 universities to choose from, how am I going to find what is right for me? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Go ahead to the next slide. And the next one as well. All right, so for finding your best fit, we're going to start with institution. What type of institution is best for you? So first would be the distinction between 2-year and 4-year institutions. In the US for undergraduate degrees, 2-year institutions would be community colleges or junior colleges, and 4-year institutions are called colleges, universities, or institutes. So at a 2-year institution, you can receive an associate's degree. That is a 2-year undergraduate degree. And at a 4-year institution, you can receive at sometimes 2-year degrees as well, the associate's degree, but also they also always offer bachelor's degree or 4-year degree. So you have to think about what type of degree are you looking to pursue. Also, there are public and private institutions. In other countries around the world, sometimes public means that the university is free. In the US, public universities still do have costs. They just vary the cost depending on the residency of the student. So whether the student is from that state originally, or if they are coming from another country like all of us, or if they are from other states in the US. So it's just something to keep in mind and make sure you're checking the right costs for your residency. Also, you can think about liberal arts or a major-based curriculum. In the US, all institutions have a flexible curriculum in the sense that students have so much space to explore, to try different areas, to change their major, and to be able to learn what they want to learn about at college. So you have lots of flexibility to do that. However, there are different curriculum types at institutions. At liberal arts colleges, you are going to have much more flexibility and much more exploration. At those colleges, they're typically smaller campuses where you'll have a very open curriculum that you can choose most of your classes. At a major-based curriculum, you still will have the flexibility to change and explore. However, there will be more requirements related to your specific major. You can also think about specialized study environments. For example, all men's or all women's colleges actually do exist in the US, and that might be something of interest for you if you're looking for a specific community, as well as historically Black colleges and universities. Those universities were created to have inclusion of students of all race. And of course, they're open to students of all nationalities and all race. And that might be something interesting if you'd like to be involved in that culture. And also religious colleges can have a connection to a specific religion for students who practice that religion or want to explore their faith while they're studying. And then the last thing to think about for institution would be the size. There's a huge range of sizes of universities, from the very smallest around 100 students to the very largest of 63,000 students at one university. So you can think about what would be the best fit for me. Do I want to have a large school with lots of various opportunities, or do I want to have a smaller school where I might have a tighter knit community? So you can think about what is the best fit for you. Go ahead to the next slide.
All right, and we're going to pass back and forth. So thanks, Anna, for getting us started. And our second parameter is academics. Of course, this is super important because you go to university to study. And so you have to start thinking about what might be your major of interest, what you might want to study. What's interesting in the United States is that you might have a very specific answer. You might have two answers, that's called double major, or you might have a major and a minor, which is where you take basically half the number of classes to receive a minor. And on top of that, if you are not sure, there's actually, as mentioned with liberal arts-based curriculums, there's opportunities for you to go in undecided. So that might help you determine what could be a good fit for you. You need to consider what your academic profile is. Because there's 4,700 colleges and universities, you have to start whittling them down by what sorts of grades you have, what their ranges are when it comes to SAT and ACT, if there's any cutoffs for a TOEFL or IELTS score. And you can use websites that we're going to demonstrate later on, some of the sites that are really helpful in this process. The schools that are very or most selective are going to require those top grades and top scores. And then it kind of goes down from there. Selective, somewhat selective, and all the way to open admissions. Open admissions means that every student is accepted as long as they meet some minimum requirements, such as at community colleges, that would be graduating high school and providing transcripts and providing your proof of payment for the institution. And as long as you provide those things, you are able to attend. So you have everything from potentially only maybe 2 to 3% students admitted all the way down to everybody being able to attend. So that makes a very wide range, and it allows you to build a list of schools that maybe fit in the more selective area down to the somewhat or open area, so that you have a chance of studying in the United States no matter what, if you make your list right. You should also, as you think about your academic profile, you want to think about your academic goals. So those will be short-term goals, such as when you're in university, what academic opportunities do you want available to you? Are you in a field where you want a lot of research opportunities available? Are you somebody who wants to study abroad? Are you somebody who would like to be able to be part of certain career-based clubs? So think about what those short-term goals are, and those will help you, again, narrow your search down a little bit further. Also, your long-term goals. So those would be after you graduate, do you have any long-term career goals? What are some institutions that might help set you up for that success? A good example is if you think that you're going to study for a graduate degree or professional degree, you can look at institutions that have good track records of supporting students through that process. So, for example, if you're interested in becoming a lawyer, you would want to look at a school that has pre-law advising that could support you along the way to potentially then taking that step for a law degree. Next slide, please. And I'll hand it back to Anna.
All right, so now that we've talked about your academic profile and how that plays into your best fit school, we're going to talk a little bit about campus life. I like to always say to my students, yes, of course, you're going to study for the academics, but I do know that many students choose to study in the US because of the incredible opportunities outside of class. Go ahead to the next slide. So when you're living on campus, when you go to an undergraduate degree in the US, in most universities, you'll have the chance to live on campus. You'll live with other students and you'll have opportunities for many different activities and events while you are during your 2 or 4 years on campus. So for example, activities and clubs. This is something that is very common in the US at universities, that students are able to get involved when they're on campus. And that's something that the universities want. They want their students to be developing their leadership abilities and their interests outside of the classroom. So for example, a student that is studying finance might join the Undergraduate Finance Association. So that might be an extracurricular club that they join. And perhaps every week that club would invite a CEO or a director of a large company from the city to come and give a presentation on how they got to where they are today. And that can be a great way to get connections outside of your classes with what you're interested in studying. But these clubs don't have to be academic. They can be for community service. They can be, fun clubs like the barbecue club or the small acts of kindness club where they help students out on campus. So there's lots to do. And typically universities will have at least 200 clubs you can join, if not much more. So you'll definitely be able to find something that's right for you. Also, athletics at some universities are something that's important to the community. So that can be a great event to go to if you like watching sporting events. But also if you are an athlete and you'd like to play a sport in college, you can look into which universities offer which sports and also at which levels. So some universities will offer sports at the varsity level, which is a highly competitive level, and students are competing for the university. Or if you'd like to have a more laid back group and play the sport for fun, there's also intramural tournaments where you play against other students at your same university. So you can check which sports are offered at each university, and that can help you to choose and lower down your list. Also, there's typically events that the university will put on for the students to attend, like lectures or concerts. Greek life is available at some universities and others it's not. So those are fraternities and sororities, which are groups of students, social groups of students that also typically have some type of connection with a philanthropy or with a community service project. So it's helping students get involved and find a group that they can call home. There's also internships and co-ops. If you'd like to get work experience in bigger companies while you're studying, you can always get a work internship or a co-op, and you can check which universities offer those. If you'd like to study abroad, you'll already be studying abroad when you go to the US, but universities also have opportunities for students to travel to universities elsewhere in the US or also outside of the US, all around the world. And you could have the chance to study in a different institution for a semester or for a year. The last thing to check for your on-campus best fit checklist would be the housing options, because even though it is common for universities to have dorms for students to live in, it is not always the case, especially at community colleges. Most community colleges do not have dorms on campus. You will be able to find some. So that is something important to check. If you're interested in living on campus, make sure the universities you are applying to offer housing options. All right, go ahead to the next slide and I'll hand it back to Jenika.
The next parameter we're going to discuss is region and setting. So we've kind of created loose regions here of the United States. Of course, some of them are grouping together large swaths of states, but it can help you get a sense of, you know, what region would you want to be in? What sort of climate are you interested in? Some students are so excited to come to the US and have 4 seasons, to get to experience snow and wear a jacket and really see what that looks like in the Midwest or the Northeast. Some students really just want to be as hot as they can be, and the Southwest might be a better fit for that, right? So because there's so many universities and colleges available, you can use, you know, what your preferences are to help you start narrowing your search and make it a little less overwhelming. My recommendation is, you know, pick a top few states or one region that you want to start your focus on, and then maybe expand from there, right? Because that can be a really great way to start looking at a smaller number of schools, and then maybe open up to more as you go. You might also have certain states in mind because of connections with friends or family or other people you may know who go to school in a certain state. And that's okay to choose to be nearby somebody you know who maybe is going to an institution in a certain location. Next slide, please. You also need to consider what kind of setting is a best fit for you. And we've divided that into 3 categories: urban, suburban, rural. And of course, there's some overlap between these things, and not every urban setting is going to be as big as New York. You know, it might, you know, urban could be large urban or small urban, but just generally you want to start thinking about, okay, do I want to be in an urban environment where things are busier, I have more access to things like public transportation and city life, but at the same time, maybe have less of a campus life, potentially, right? Sometimes those things actually can be both, depending on the institution. Somewhere more suburban would have access to the city life, but maybe a quieter setting, with something that might be a lot more contained as a campus and feel more safe for you. They might have more activities focused around campus life because there's not as many busy things happening directly around. Or somewhere more rural, which was what we call a college town atmosphere, where a lot of activities center around campus life, even the people who live there who aren't students. And you tend to get a more unique cultural experience when you encounter small town American life than you might have in a larger city setting. Next slide. Lastly, you need to think about finances. Now, we're not going to talk a lot about this just because there is going to be a webinar in about an hour on this very topic. So when we talk about the 5 steps to US study, step 1 is narrowing your search, which is what we're doing now. Step 2 is considering your finances, and I usually call it step 1.5. And the reason I call it that is because you really have to think about financing your studies as you're narrowing your search. If you are going to need funding from a university, you have to think about that and search for institutions that have funding streams that are available to you. You need to speak with your family about personal funds that may be available. You need to see if there's outside funds available at government organizations in your country, or also potentially private organizations. And lastly, you can consider what kind of work opportunities might be available on campuses. But do bear in mind, students can work only on campus as part of their F1 status. That can be up to 20 hours. And then on top of that, there's some training opportunities you might be able to engage in. Like I said, that won't be the main topic of today's conversation. We did get a really good question that we're going to get to questions soon, but it's a combination of the 2 things I just talked about. So we'll go ahead and go on to the next slide. I'm just giving you a little teaser for the upcoming question. So here's a couple QR codes to help you get started. Of course, EducationUSA can help you with this. This is why we're here. We're here because we know it's overwhelming how much choice there is. And so your advisor knows about almost every university. We're always learning. And we can really help you try to find that best fit. So please follow us on social media, check out our website. Also, use this Define Your Priorities questionnaire. This is great. It goes over all the things we just talked about, all the questions you should be asking yourself. You can jot down the answers and share that with your Education USA advisor. And they can really help you get the ball rolling on this discussion and helping you narrow your search. And next slide. As previously mentioned, there's some great search engines out there, and actually there's a lot of them, which can also feel overwhelming. So we've indicated our 4 favorites here. And out of the 4 favorites, my favorite is the College Board. I do feel like the Big Future search engine does a pretty good job of allowing you to put in a lot of different parameters that you might have to help you narrow down your search. But all 4 of these are worth using and all have kind of slightly different approaches. So now we're going to go ahead and take questions. There are so many questions coming in and we only have 5 minutes left. So we're going to do our best to answer our questions. So I'm going to do the one that I saw, and then Anna, if you maybe have picked out a question, we could go back and forth. So I saw a student put in the question, if I am looking for a lower cost, what's a potential region in the United States that could be good for me? So there are definitely places in the US that have lower cost of living than some. And I think when you look at setting and you look at urban, suburban, rural, one of the benefits of a more rural setting is usually lower cost. The institutions tend to have lower tuition, and if you're having housing, the housing also tends to be a lot lower cost. So there's some states like, say, North Dakota, South Dakota, a lot of the ones that are more northern or Midwest, where there's a lot more rural zones, there tends to be a lot of lower cost tuition institutions, but they're going to exist in every state. They just tend to be in more rural locations. So that would be a focus that I would say that you could look at as you look at the institutions might be a good fit.
Great. Yeah, I actually did see another question that I think would be great to answer live. So the question was, when creating my college list, should I give preference to colleges with similar or different academic and social profiles? So I think of all these things we've mentioned here today, if there's 4,000 universities, you're going to be able to limit that list down to maybe between 5 and 15 where you'll actually apply. So your final college list will be between typically 5 and 15 schools to apply to. However, we don't recommend that you just research 10 to 15 schools. We recommend that you actually start with a bigger list, research between 30 and 50 universities, and then once you've researched them, you're going to be able to say, oh, I really like this aspect of this university. I like larger universities because I've seen a few that have the programs I'm looking for, or I like universities in rural towns because I saw that those had a specific aspect that enticed me. So I do recommend you start with a larger list and then you lower it down to that actual list you'll apply to. So you do have kind of 2 lists going at the same time, your research list and the actual list you apply to. You asked about, should you give preferences to ones with similar or different academic profiles? Be honest with yourself about what your academic profile is and what type of selectivity you could get into. And you can actually add a few universities to your list that are a bit more challenging than your academic profile, then add a few that are a perfect match with your academic profile, and then a few that will be a bit easier for you to get into. So you do have safety, match, and reach schools. I like to balance those out in thirds so that you have chances to get into all universities.
Great. Next question. What should I do when I am undecided for my career? And that's totally fine. The cool thing about US schools is even if they're not a liberal arts college per se, most institutions have a liberal arts philosophy where they really want students to, as you get into your first year, immerse yourself in a lot of different subject matter so that you can start making decisions. Even if you're not sure what major you want, you just know I like sciences or I like humanities or social sciences. You can go in undecided in that larger category and you can figure it out and not even declare your major until your second year. So it's okay. you can use that time to explore, and you can then work with your academic advisor on campus as you enjoy certain classes to help shape what could be the major I want to do, and then also what could be the career that I would be potentially a good fit. You can also use experiential learning like internships to help you determine, is this a right fit for me, or is this a right fit for me? So I would recommend you would want an institution that has a lot of opportunities to do that kind of experiential learning. And before I hand it back over to Anna, somebody asked if the priority questionnaire QR code could come back up. So if we could share the slide with that on it.
Absolutely. That's also the handout that's attached with our presentation, so you can find it on the FAIR platform as well, but we'll try and pull that up while we finish up. We have about 30 more seconds. So I just wanted to answer one last question. That was, what is the difference between community college and four-year colleges, as well as what is undergraduate versus graduate? So today we talked mostly about undergraduate degrees. That includes both community colleges and four-year universities. Once again, community colleges offer associate's degrees, which are 2 years, and four-year colleges offer four-year bachelor's degrees. And then graduate would be master's and PhD. And the last question is, how can I get in touch with an Education USA advisor? That is a great question for us to end on today. First, you have 3 more hours left at the live fair. You can contact an Education USA advisor clicking on the blue chat box on any of the pages of the fair. However, of course, we would love for you to continue to be in contact with us and get advising throughout the rest of the year or the next few years until you apply. You can find the closest Education USA office to you on the Education USA website. So you can find that there. And I think we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think the slide was the one previous to that that has the link to the Defining Your Priorities website. And we're so excited all of you joined. Please get in contact with your Education USA advisors to continue learning more.
Thanks, everyone. We're sorry we couldn't answer all your questions. There were so many people here today, but we promised your EdUSA advisor can help you. Thanks for being here.